Who you are today is who you've always been and who you will always be in any time period, past, present, or future, in any civilization, any tribe, any group of people. You are always the essence of you, who you are remains. So that's way of thinking that I used to embody or embrace. Uh, I used to always fantasize about different time periods, and I just was very curious to seeing how I would fit in different periods of time, right? Um, because I felt like the current world that I was existing in wasn't accommodating to who I thought I was. So my instinct was to try to change or justify that if I was perhaps in a different place at a different time, that I would be a different person. Well, a lot of experiences that I had throughout life, I had to come to the realization, or I came to the realization, I should say, that I am who I am, and that no matter where I am in time, physically, on the earth, that I will continue to be who I am. And until I face that I cannot become a better version of that. So it took me a while to really come to terms with that, because I had to confront a lot of things that I didn't like about the person that I am. And it was until I did that I was able to actually move on from there. But I had to sit with that for a while, because I would try to go around it, right? So this is what looking at other times periods is trying to go around who you are, is saying that if circumstances around me change, then I will be better. But the thing is that the circumstances don't change you, they expose you. So when you go through different circumstances in life, who you become isn't changing. You're not changing into somebody else. What's happening is that you're merely being exposed to another layer or part of yourself that typically doesn't get exposed under normal circumstances. See, the reason spirituality is and especially online, it's easy to portray a certain way, like, things are always good and this love and light thing. But the reality is that we still have to deal with the shadows and the things that we don't like about ourselves. That's just a reality of things. So that's just part of life. So until we confront that, we won't be able to truly be the better version of ourselves. So situations are there to show you pieces of yourself that you can't typically see in otherwise calm or non-triggering situations. So when a situation arises, it's presenting you with the ability to see another part of yourself. So if there is a challenge in your life at this moment, if you're going through something that's challenging you at this moment, be aware and conscious of who you are being in this very moment. Because who you are being in this moment is being revealed to you. When adversity comes, when challenges come, when life isn't as pleasant as we would like it, who do we become? And that is a part of us, and we have to accept that. Now we can move forward from that and grow into a better version of that, but we have to first sit with the reality that that is who we are, and that is how we deal with things. So if a situation that comes is challenging and we just hide, that's who we are. And we are the person that does not like confrontation, does not like adversity, and we attempt to get away from it. If when adversity comes, we lash out in emotion, we are somebody who struggles with controlling their emotions, who struggles with, in the face of emotionally triggering events, it is hard for that person to articulate themselves and have a very grounded conversation. So these moments serve to show us parts of ourselves that we wouldn't otherwise see. It doesn't mean that that's who we always are, but that's a part of us. So recognizing that helps us to be a better version of that and to know how to deal with that when it arises in our reality. So who we are today is who we would always been. If you are a pessimist today, you don't think that there's pessimists in ancient times. You don't think that there was pessimists in tribal times. All these archetypes that you see today have always existed because they exist within humanity. The same ACTs and Gs, the DNA that we are derived from, has not changed. So these different archetypes and patterns of thinking are still present and were present back then. So when we think like that, when we think that we have to go to a different time, we're trying to elude or escape the responsibility that we have to take ownership of our own actions, to take ownership of our own life. So that is a response that happens when we are not dealing or taking ownership for our life. We attempt to change the situation. If only the situation was better, if the time period was better, if the system that I was under was better, then I would be a great person, obviously. But it's just that I was born in the wrong period, under the wrong economic governmental system, and boo-hoo, like, it's just, it is what it is. See, that way of thinking negates any responsibility that we could possibly take for ourselves, but at the same time, it doesn't allow us to take control and ownership of our lives to actually experience something greater for ourselves. So this isn't a negative thing. When I say you can't change who you are, see, people would say, well, no, I see people change all the time. People can change. I've seen it happen. What's really happening is that people aren't changing. They're just becoming a better version of who they've always been. If you look at the essence of who those people are that you say have changed, they just tapped into a greater version of that. But in the essence of that, they're still the same people. They're still the same energy. They just learn how to accept it and utilize that energy to get the things that they want out of life. They now become conscious and aware of their characteristics in such a way that it propelled them into a better position in their reality. So they still are that child. They still are that energy. That essence of who that person is still the same. But not, they haven't changed, but they have become better. So that's the difference between that. It's not that people are changing, they're just tapping into a greater version of themselves, but the essence of who they are, that's always going to remain. We came here to have this experience, and we go through different phases in our life, in our reality, but at the core, you're still that soul. You're still that same soul. You're just experiencing different layers and versions of that, when you tap into different conscious awareness of who you are. So here are 3 tips to help with this topic. Learn to recognize and be at peace with who you are. Most of us have not been confronted or dealt with who we truly are. We tend to run away, we create distractions, and we don't often sit with ourselves and analyze ourselves objectively and just be at peace with who we are. We judge ourselves, we condemn ourselves, and we don't want to look at that. But if we can just objectively accept ourselves for who we are, that is the defining step that will allow you to become a better version of that. You first have to accept who you are. So even all the things that you might not like about yourself, all the things that you might perceive to be negative or perceive to be unattractive about you, you have to learn to accept that. That is who you are, and it's okay. You came here to have this experience, and that's who you are, and you are you, and nobody else could be you. And if once you embrace that, you can move forward from that. So Focus inward and take ownership of your life. Realize that everything that you're experiencing, you have has some say and contribution to it. Realize that your situation currently looks the way that it does because of your input, because of your thoughts, because of your actions, because of how you have chosen to deal with it, because of how you have chosen to look at it. Your attitude and your reaction or action or lack of action all has led to your current reality. And that is an empowering perspective, because now you can, if you don't like where you currently stand, you know and you realize you have the power to change that. And third is do the best you can with what you have. Stop thinking that you have to go somewhere else, or that you have to accumulate a certain amount of money, or that you have to be in a relationship for you to level up in life. The best thing that has helped me in this reality is doing the best with what I have at this moment. So whatever life has dealt me, or whatever I've allowed into my reality, whatever present situation I found myself in, what can I do with that? Okay, I can't go back in time and change the course of history. I can't change the system, at least not overnight, that exists. But what can I do in this moment with the reality that I found myself in to create a better situation, to enhance and bring more harmony, to enrich people's lives? What are the actions that I could do to take that? So those are three things. Learn to recognize and be at peace with who you are. Focus inward and take ownership of your life, and do the best you can with what you have. And I appreciate it, Spoiler Brat, for the badge. So yeah, hope everybody is good. If you guys have any questions, about this topic, and if you didn't watch the reel that I posted on this, I posted a reel the other day about this topic. And so I just always like to reiterate and expand on the ideas that I do in the reels, because it's just a minute, and I know the attention span is short, but I like to go back and reiterate and expand that and really have a conversation about it, because I think about what I put out, and I don't want it to just be a surface level thing, because it's much deeper, even though when you put it out, you have but so much time to go in and be deep. Yeah, so appreciate the energy. Thank you for coming along, still here. And sometimes I take a break from social media and I just don't feel compelled to be as present on it, and then other times I do. And so I just allow myself to flow with that energy, and try not to put pressure when it's unnecessary. But sometimes I'd really like to get into it and be consistent, but it's just a lot of things going on in life, and this is one component of it. But it sure is hot out here. MVO said thoughts on cow's milk. I don't have, what do you mean? Cow's milk? As far as what? There's many ways to look at it, I hear a lot of things, and there's a lot of opinions on that, but in general, I don't really drink milk like that. I usually drink coconut milk, not because I have anything against it or anything like that. It just is what it is. I believe that food is anything an organism can use for energy, plain and simple. So it doesn't matter where it comes from, or what kingdom of life, or if it seems like the organism can't eat it or use it for, like, if an organism can take something and use it for energy, that's food. And so that's pretty much it. Everything else to me is kind of just subjective. So it could be ethical, moral opinions. I know in India, in certain parts of the world like that they have a certain perspective around their spirituality revolves around karma. So they don't want to put out, potentially receiving what they put out. Other parts of the world, the philosophy isn't karmic in that way. It's more focused on six cycles and utilizing the cycles and realizing that you are a part of that cycle. So that's more of what I believe and partake for in my life. I don't think that there's this karmic debt that I need to pay or anything that I need to pay. I believe I'm having this experience and I'm here to be human, and that there's cycles on the earth, and that if I align myself with the earth and the cycles of the earth in harmony with that, that's the most valuable thing that I can do for the earth. So a part of that for me is, like I said, like food is just anything that any organism can use for energy. So that's pretty simple. Like if an organism can use X, Y, and Z for energy, then that's food for them. If they can't, then that's not food for them. And everything else to me is just ethical, moral, and subjective. But yeah, I don't believe in ending suffering. I'm not on this mission to end suffering. I'm just on a mission to bring awareness, because I think suffering is a component of life. Some people are gonna suffer more than others, but I just think that we have to take life and existence for what it is. When we start to strip it and try to refine it and take certain components out, that's process. That's processed food. That's what we do with food, right? We process it and we strip it of components and then we try to consume that, and then we see the repercussions of that because we diluted the natural cycle. So that's the same thing we're doing with different components of life. Like, how can we take out suffering? Can we take out death? Can we take out pain? I'm not for that. I think that life is something that is a whole package deal. You either take it and embrace all of it, or you don't, and you try to strip it apart and kind of end up collapsing in on yourself. And then that's the wisdom. That's what we call wisdom, is the long-term effect of things. See, a lot of people have intellect. They can break something down. They can tell you the chemical structure and the biological mechanisms of life. But wisdom is just a overarching awareness of how your actions and the actions of everything affect one another in a long term. And that even though some things might look like the best thing to do right now, that if we look and zoom out on the cycles of life, that might have repercussions, and taking that into consideration. So a lot of times people didn't ask what would be the repercussions of a civilization. What would be the repercussions of building tall cities and cityscapes in streets and cars and cutting the forest in half with railroads? They just didn't think of that. They just thought, well, we can do it, but there was not a lot of thought put into the long-term effects of that. So then we see that. Then we see that 100 years later, where people are concerned with wildlife and the management of that, and how our input has affected that, how we see how technology has polluted and diluted the human experience. But they weren't thinking of that when it was created. So I think that if we create with a blueprint, a foundation of how does this affect human physiology and the ecology first, then we can create like things and technologies that are in alignment with that. But if we ask that question last, that's a problem. That's just a recipe for disaster. I think that's the questions that got to be asked first before things are created. So yeah, to me, that's wisdom. See you guys next time. Stay balanced.